You're listening to the Oz TV podcast, only on the Oz Network. It is the Oz Network coming to you today for a very special interview, a very one that I'm so excited to bring you today. For all the Third Watch fans out there, we are having an interview with the one, the only Mr. Coby Bell, played Tyrone Davis across 6 seasons of Third Watch. The most appearances of any actor in any of the episodes, 127 episodes in total, appeared in all but 5 episodes of Third Watch. So a great chat to have here. Of course, we had Coby on a bit over a month ago in our 20-year reunion special, but this time around, it's plenty to talk about through getting the role, working with a variety of different actors, some scenes that he filmed, and even some fun stories around his early days of acting to his current days of acting. There's basketball with George Clooney involved here, and it's a lot of fun and a great chat that you're going to have a lot of fun with today. So without further ado, here is our interview with the one, the only Mr. Coby Bell. An absolute pleasure to be able to welcome our next guest back to the program. A bit over a month ago, we of course had our big Third Watch 20th anniversary reunion special where we welcomed him for the very first time, learnt a lot, a great deal, had a lot of fun, but it's an absolute honour to be able to welcome him back to the show today to learn a little bit more about his time on Third Watch and his career in general, and find out a lot, I am very, very sure. A lovely time to have Mr. Coby Bell back here on the Oz Network. Coby, mate, welcome back to the program.
It is an absolute honor to have me on the show.
So modest. I love this. This is why we want you on here, just to hear those things, Coby. That's exactly it.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me back on, man. I've been looking forward to talking to you again.
It's fascinating, I think. You know, we talked a lot during that 20th anniversary reunion kind of about plenty of things, and obviously a lot of great feedback we've received from that, and you know, 20 years, as we said, a long time, and here we are still talking about this show. And I mean, it must be a crazy thing to think that, especially for yourself, because when you started Third Watch, you were still very young. You still had kind of just started acting and been in a few TV shows and that. So I guess it must be one of these things in the world of acting in Hollywood that these roles come about, and you just never know whether you're going to be, after 3 episodes, never talking about it again, or talking to a random guy in Australia 20 years later about the legacy of the show.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. It's a trip to think that it's been 20 years since we started. And I just feel real lucky to have, been a part of it, and to have made the relationships, the friendships that I made during that show, that are still, some of my best friends to this day. So, yeah, it was great. It was great. And it's funny. I'm actually right now working with Chris Chulak again. And I hadn't seen him in so long. Chris Chulak was one of the executive producers of the show. And I'm doing a guest arc on SEAL Team, which is a show that's on CBS. This season I'm doing, I don't know, anywhere from 6, 7, 8 episodes, something like that. So I just got to hang out with Chulak. We were talking about the old times just a couple of days ago. It's crazy.
Fantastic. It's always interesting with those connections. I'm sure it's a big world, the world of Hollywood, but then I guess also it can be quite small when all of a sudden you do end up working with someone, particularly where you've had such a long stint on a show as you did with Third Watch, because is kind of when you got the role of Third Watch, you'd had a guest stint on ER. Had any of that connection worked into the Third Watch role? Because obviously ER and Third Watch are kind of connected, or was it somehow different when you eventually got that first script for Third Watch when it first happened?
No, yeah, there actually was a connection. I didn't know it at the time. I was pretty naive to how everything worked. ER was my first job ever. So that was my, right out of college. First time being on TV was on ER. And then after ER, I did a bunch of guest spots the rest of that season. And I didn't know that they kept me in mind from that guest spot that I did on ER when they were developing Third Watch. And I had zero idea that I was their top pick for that role the whole time. And I was oblivious. So the show, Third Watch is still being developed. I actually became a series regular on another show just for one season called L.A. Doctors, which was this show on CBS. That only went for a year, but it's actually how I met my wife, so that was pretty cool.
Perfect.
And then that show ended, and then I went right in and got Third Watch, and then went off the races from there.
The rest is history. I need to ask, because it's funny with ER, because I'm a big ER fan, kind of. It helped me get into Third Watch. But do you remember much about your role on ER, Coby? Because I remember your lovely little brief arc on ER with your patient and the little thing that happened to him when you were getting examined.
Yeah. It was he was a track runner that was having complaining of shortness of breath, and then when they go to check it out, it turns out that he has testicular cancer.
Mm.
And then when who was it? Maria Bello.
Mm-hmm.
Maria Bello. She was the doctor. She was that was taking care of my guy. And so during the examination, when she's checking out the guy's junk, he gets a boner.
He does.
And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was I think that season a lot of people kind of remember that just because of the of what happened. But that was a cool experience, man, because I got to my first job ever. I didn't know what was going on. Next thing I know, I'm playing basketball at lunch with George Clooney and I remember I'm playing basketball with George Clooney, just going, okay, this is how it works. And then I remember the girls from the cast of Friends walked by, and they're like, "Hi, George." And I'm like, "Okay, so this is what it's like to be on TV."
You've made it. First acting gig. You're hanging out with George Clooney.
Yeah.
There's Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow. This is it.
Yeah. They came by. Yeah, they watched us play basketball. It was a trip.
Wow. That's crazy. And I'm loving these connections all of a sudden we're getting to Friends and Third Watch. When Anthony was telling that story about being with Matthew Perry on the reunion. So, gosh, maybe there's an extended universe going on here. Third Watch and Friends, they exist.
Maybe. I don't know. It's a trip, when you go that far back. It's just crazy just to see everything that's happened since then.
It is interesting to kind of have that first role and then, as you said, kind of be kept in mind for Third Watch. I mean, when you get that script straight away, I mean, was it always the character of Davis that you were considered for? Did you have to audition for that? I mean, how did that all kind of play out when you eventually do get the script that very first day of Third Watch?
Yeah, I always was auditioning for the role of Davis. I did have to audition. I had to go through the whole process of testing, which is really stressful. You're in front of all the network bigwigs, and then you go in front of all the studio bigwigs, and you're doing the scenes. And I had no idea that I was their top choice, so I was sweating it out. And then found out. And I remember at this point, we didn't know where the show was going to shoot. So they were talking about, I want to say, it's either going to be New York, Seattle, Chicago, or might have been Miami or something. I don't know. I'm like, okay. And so I found out I got the job, but I still didn't know where I was going to be living. So, okay, you got the job. And I said, okay, where am I moving? Then we don't know yet. And then remember, like a week later, we found out I was going to be in New York. And at that time, I was dating my now wife. We'd only been dating for maybe 3-4 months. But things were going really well. And I said, hey, I got to move to New York. Do you want to come with me? And luckily she did.
Wow. Rest is history. It's crazy to think kind of now in hindsight looking back at the show and as long as it lasted. But yeah, those initial days, and I can imagine just everything up in the air, because I believe, were you one of the first people actually casted? Like you were one of the first people locked in as one of the major roles?
I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I remember seeing Anthony in the hallway during the testing process. I remember seeing Jason. So and I remember seeing Beach. Mike Beach was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being really impressed with how relaxed he was. How he was like, yeah, whatever. All right, whatever. If I get it, I get it. You know what I mean? He was like, everyone's kind of off in the corner running their lines and trying to, psych themselves up, especially me, because, I'd only been, like you said, doing the acting thing or at least being on TV for, a year and a half at that point. And Beach is over there, reading the newspaper. Well,
just chilling.
Yeah.
But that's you now, right, though, Coby? I'm sure when you go into a role, that's you in the corner reading the paper and you've got some fresh-faced 23-year-old going, oh, my God, I'm so nervous. Am I going to get the part? And you're like, kids.
Yeah. It kind of, you know what? It kind of is, man. It kind of is. I've been so lucky just as far as getting on things that stay on. Since Third Watch, I've had a lot of good long runs on other things. So yeah, after a while, you kind of those nerves don't always go away. Cause at this point, it's for a different reason. I'm like, okay, I got to get this job. Back then, it was like I got to get a job because I want to have a career and I want to get it all going. And now it's like, okay, I got to get this job because I have 4 kids and they need to eat, and I need to, you know what I mean? And they're in club volleyball and in private school, and I gotta keep buying them shoes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that Hollywood lifestyle, of course. The moment you met George Clooney, I mean, you're an A-lister. You're in there. You've got to keep buying the Rolexes and flying them off to like skiing school in Switzerland and stuff like that, right? Be honest, Coby. We know the truth.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you nailed it. That's what's going on down here.
That's how it works.
In Long Beach, California.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But it's kind of the perfect role, I can imagine, for you, as you're saying, sort of only been in television for about 18 or so months, and here you are playing fresh-faced rookie cop who, as the audience, we're learning as much about at the same time. So, I mean, it really ended up being the perfect role for someone at that part of your career.
It did, yeah. The two things lined up perfectly. And I could feed off of, how I was feeling about, starting out in my industry and kind of translate that into how Davis was feeling about his, starting out being a cop, for sure. I definitely did a lot of that. There wasn't not a lot of acting required with a lot of that stuff.
And I love in the Welcome to Camelot documentary on the DVD. I think we touched a little bit this in the reunion, kind of your story about the first time acting alongside Skip, and kind of you were just so impressed with his ability, and then essentially you're turning to the producer saying like, hey, we're going to cast him, like you had some sort of say in that sort of stuff. I mean, that must be, you're talking about sort of seeing these guys for the first time, but just to start that relationship with Skip. Obviously, you guys are still friends to this day. You have such great chemistry on the show. I mean, do you remember kind of meeting him for the first time in the lead up to sort of reading the lines off each other in that first scene?
Absolutely. That audition, he came in and he crushed that audition, and we were improvising. We were, we were in this hotel room that had these chairs that had wheels on the bottom and kind of swiveled. The chairs swiveled.
Yep.
So as we're doing the scene, as we're supposed to be driving around the car, we started like turning the chairs just to be silly, and just little things like that. And when he left, I remember I turned to Chris Chulak and Ed Bonero and John Wells, and I was like, "That's the guy, right? That's got to be the guy." And they were like, "Hey." They were like, "Kid, come." We're not going to jump to that, to the conclusion yet. But I'm glad he ended up being the guy. Definitely.
It definitely worked out well. And I can imagine in a role like that as well, there's lots of ride-alongs and research and everything along those lines. Was that going on before you first started shooting? Was that happening during the shoot when you were in New York? I mean, how many of these ride-alongs with NYPD did you end up doing?
I remember doing a couple, kind of foggy at this point. I remember doing one particular one with me and Jason Wiles did one. And these guys were going after, I think it was like some sort of child pornographer or something like that. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And they're like, nah, you're fine. Here. And they gave us, they had a wrist, they give you a wristband, different colors for each day. And that way so if you're wearing a green wristband and you were plain clothes, people could look at the wristband and go, okay, that guy knows, what the color of the day is. That guy's a cop. I mean, maybe I just gave away some secret that I shouldn't be giving away. I don't know. But, it's,
yeah. If all of a sudden our podcast gets shut down in a couple of days, the NYPD is listening. It's all good.
He didn't know about the wristband. Yeah, and I remember so we're in the car. They're okay, yeah, we got to go up into this building. You guys want to come? And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, we should not be going up in there with you. No, you're fine. Just stand behind us. So yeah, we went up there, and we were like just a few feet back from the whole process of what goes down when they arrest somebody, and it was eye-opening for sure.
And I can imagine you've got a different mindset in those situations because kind of, you allude to there like a bit of a shock, like, oh my God, we're going after like this, disgusting person about child pornography. Like, what are we doing here? But at the same time, you're there for research. So, of course, you're obviously having to sort of look at what these officers are doing and kind of try and take that on board so you can portray that on screen with the character of Davis. So I can imagine it's sort of it's a mixed bag of emotions when you're on a ride-along like that.
Yeah, there was that. But there was also like, oh, if this goes sideways, I have no business being up here. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing I can do to help out the situation. But yeah, luckily nothing bad happened. But yeah, it was pretty true. And another thing I remember is just sitting around a lot. You just how much waiting there was.
Did you have to help with the paperwork? Is it kind of like, come on, fill in some forms for us while you're here, actor? Like, you can help out.
Or when we were just waiting for when we were supposed to go into this dude's house, and it was a long time, but just sitting around waiting for whatever we were waiting for. So, and I remember that kind of helping me, watching them and how they just kind of bullshit and hang out and their little banter while they're hanging out. So I can, kind of applied that to how me and Skip would do our thing when we were just, supposed to be sitting in the car, bullshitting, which was, a lot of that was my favorite part of the show was just the downtime. When the writers would give us stuff and when there was just, kind of pointless banter. But it was so, I don't know, it made it more real for me.
Well, I think that's what sold the show so early on. And I think particularly in those first 2 to 3 seasons, you could easily tell that this was, half the brainchild of somebody who had come up with ER, because what sold ER so early on was, of course, the dialogue mixed with the action. It was a very smart written show. And that's what I think really helped Third Watch in those early days. And particularly, kind of as you're explaining, those banter scenes between yourself and Skip, we had it with Jason and Molly, the paramedics, it was just all of those dialogue scenes. It had that realistic feel to it. And I've always wondered, particularly with the cop side of things, because yourself and Skip, Molly and Jason just had such great chemistry. You could just so believable as these partners in both different cars. How much of that was just pure script? I mean, was there anything ever completely ad-libbed with some of that? Did they give you free range to kind of just add on to what they had written and kind of expanded a little bit?
Not free range. The writing was really good writers, and they did a really good job of setting up those natural situations. Certain writers would be more open to our input, or if we had a little ad-lib here, ad-lib there. And then, after a while, once they kind of learn your voice, once they learn what works what worked with me and Skip, our interactions, they would start writing that way. But yeah, it depends on the writer. Some writers are really like, no, say my words the way I write my words. Some writers are, hey, whatever makes it work, whatever makes it, seem more natural, do it that way. So it just depends.
The first season too, kind of that naivety of Davis and sort of the development. I mean, the very first episode, the Jerry getting shot and kind of, being a bit gung-ho going up the roof and kind of having that epic scene, which obviously is the one that you were talking about in that documentary when kind of like Skip's grabbing your face and kind of, I'm not going to let you die like your father and things like that. I mean, it's just such an epic way for this character to start, because between your character and Anthony's character in Carlos, like, you're our eyes. We're learning about this world through both of you. So I think what sells that so well is that just that blend of that mixture then on their opposites, with Skip for yourself and then obviously with Beach for Anthony's character. So I can imagine reading that script for the first time. It must all of a sudden, just for you as a young actor to be wanting to have this career and working off these guys and just having so much to work with. The layers of the characters, even in just that pilot episode, is just incredible.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. Yeah, no, that was a really, I mean, at that stage in my life, that was really a dream role. And it's really, I mean, all I ever really wanted to do. Like, I've never had big, dreams of, just being like the king of Hollywood and being the most, whatever it is, famous person on earth. That's never been my goal. All I ever really wanted to do was just work, and so to get a role like that, where it was like perfect for me at the time, and it was such fun, challenging stuff with such good writers, good actors, a good production team. It was just I was extremely fortunate to fall into that.
On the flip side of that, though, I can imagine as a young 20-something actor in his first major role in a television second major role, but on a show that maybe lasted a little bit longer than LA Doctors, it must be a little bit nice, though, to kind of all of a sudden have a few people recognize you, a couple of media interviews here and there, maybe a few premiere parties. I mean, like, was it a bit exciting? Like, I'm getting a bit of a taste for the high life here just for a moment?
I've never been that guy. Like I would much rather just go to work, do the best I can, and then just go home. Go home or go hang with a couple friends. I've never even when I was of that age where I kind of should have been doing all that, I was never into it. And the times when I did have to do it, it was when I felt like, okay, no, I really I should show up to this, for the sake of whatever, for the show or for my career or for whatever it is, I should do it. But I would really rather not do any of that stuff.
So who was the person on Third Watch that liked that? Who milked the limelight whenever they could?
I don't know, man. Everybody was pretty much about the work. And, I was actually that's what I was talking to Chulak the other day. I was working at COT and I went up to see him in his office and we just hung out for 20 minutes or something. And it's somewhere in the conversation I said, dude, I never really got a chance to thank you for, and he said, thank me for what? And I said, well, thank you for setting the tone for how I should approach this business. Because I've done a lot of TV since then, and you come across a lot of people that are like, whatever, we're just making TV. It's not that, doesn't matter. What, are we getting the shot perfect? Well, who cares? Let's move on. Or, it's good enough. It's good enough for TV. And Chulak was never that way. He's always trying to make the very best thing he can make, and expects that out of everyone that he's working with. So the tone on Third Watch was we were having a good time, but we all showed up to work, to really work. So all the other actors on the show kind of had the same attitude. I mean, I remember Anthony. Anthony and Bobby would go to stuff, but I don't know if they were doing it because it fed their ego or anything. I think they were just doing it because they knew it was good for their career, to get out there and get more publicity. And that was the one thing that I never understood when I was young, is that like publicity can equal more work. I was always like, no, I got the job and I don't need to do anything else, but which is how I prefer to do it. But I do see now that, there are benefits to if you get a little publicity, then it's easier to get other roles.
Was obviously you're mainly working with Skip and then of course intersecting with Jason and Molly's characters, being the police arc. How much interaction was there outside of the scenes that you shot together with sort of the paramedic side of things? I mean, you mentioned Bobby, of course. Bobby Cannavale's probably gone on to the biggest things out of anyone from Third Watch. But do you remember much from sort of those early days, kind of interacting with people like Bobby and Kim? Maybe some of the ones that you don't necessarily share a lot of scenes together with.
Yeah, we all hung out, especially in those first couple of years. We all hung out a lot. I think the best friends that I've kept, that I'm still in contact with, all the time from the show are Skip. Like I just talked to Skip yesterday, 2 days ago. We had a nice long talk when I was sitting in traffic. Anthony and I are actually developing something. With who Bruce Campbell is?
Yes.
So Bruce, I was on Burn Notice with Bruce.
Yep.
And he just got done doing, actually in New Zealand, he was doing Ash versus Evil Dead out there. And anyway, Anthony and I had this idea. This is a trip. I'm totally going on a tangent here, but Anthony and I had this idea 15 years ago, like towards the end of Third Watch. I had this idea. I brought it to Anthony. We started developing it. After Third Watch, we pitched it around. But then I got on the game before this comedy that I was on for a long time after that. Before the show, before the thing with me and Anthony could ever go further into development, and then it kind of went away. And then Bruce and I got to talking about the different idea, and I was like, dude, that's a lot like me and Anthony's idea. We should combine them all together and see what happens. And just over the last couple months, we've been developing this thing, and there's still a lot more hurdles we have to get over, but we've gotten over a few big ones already, and it's moving along more than I ever thought. Like Anthony and I are like, whoa, so this thing that's been sitting around in our heads for 15 years could actually happen at some point.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's cool, and that's the other thing is that at this point, all I really want to do is just work with my friends,
Mm-hmm.
So if I can get something going with, Bruce, who was like my best buddy from Burn Notice, and Anthony, who was one of my best buddies from Third Watch, that would just be like a dream come true. It really would.
Fantastic. I mean, this is the thing that I think a lot of us as fans of the show love hearing, and that's going back to what I was saying about the great chemistry that all of you shared on screen, particularly in those earlier seasons. And I shouldn't just single out the earlier seasons. The later seasons, too, had fantastic chemistry with the actors as well, because we like to think these guys are best friends out of the show. We know they're hanging out. And that's what I think sells the show so well. And this is a thing that I've always advocated for Third Watch, where it is got that underrated tag on it, because I think that some of the best chemistry I think anyone will find in television, particularly in that period of television too, and TV really was changing sort of in the late 90s into the early 2000s into what we're used to today. But I mean, it was a real development of television at that point, and some just great underrated episodes and moments on a show that is a very underrated show still to this day to me in television history.
No, I agree. Yeah, and a lot of that did have to do with the friendships that were really there. Like I said, Skip, Anthony. I'm still really, really close with Beach. I don't keep in contact with Jason Wiles as much as I would like to, but we were really tight back in the days of the show. So yeah, it was a great work environment.
I have to say, with Davis, now, I think we mentioned on the reunion episode that you ended up being in the most episodes based in terms of screen time, not just credit only, but 127 episodes, I believe, counted through out of the 132. So you only missed 5 episodes, I think, in terms of not actually being, which is an incredible run. But some of the things I love about the development of the Davis character that maybe don't get alluded to as much, particularly in those early days, it was really until Nia Long's character came on the show. Davis had a lot of girlfriends, and most of these were off screen. There was always kind of a conversation the next morning with Sully about, I've got a new one, I've got this, I've got that. Were you ever disappointed you didn't actually get to share the screen time? Because I wanted to see this string of Davis's girlfriends the next morning.
I never even realized that until you just said that. It's kind of true. The first few seasons, and yeah, I don't know. I remember them bringing on a couple of different women that were. I guess they were setting up to be a Davis girlfriend, and then maybe they didn't. Maybe the person wasn't available anymore. Maybe they didn't feel the chemistry was there, or I don't know. But yeah. So wait, was the Nia thing before? What was Amy's character's name?
Taylor. No, Amy's character was before. Yeah. So, because that was season 3.
Oh yeah.
Because you guys had like sort of bonded because both your dads had been lost in the line of duty.
Yeah, and the Taylor thing I remember was starting to happen when Bobby was still on the show. So I think they planned the seed in the second season. And then by season 3, it really kicked in. Yeah.
Which, because, with the Bobby one, it was kind of in After Hours, the best episode of all of Third Watch. We'll talk about that one in a minute. But, because they sort of, touched on that and then they kind of fizzled out. But it was kind of all post the 9/11 storyline. Her dad was missing and then kind of you guys had bonded. We had Amy on the show about a year ago and we brought up with her the shower scene that you guys shared, which, that was the moment. We knew you two were together when all of a sudden you're both cuddling naked in a shower. And I mean, is that... in all seriousness, like for somebody who's not an actor, you think, wow, that must be a great scene. You get to cuddle naked with a beautiful woman in a shower. What a life. But I can imagine it's not that simple. I'm probably quite awkward, is it not?
Yeah, pretty awkward. And you got the whole crew around. The water, I don't even remember if the water was warm. And I remember, I think Brooke Kennedy directed that episode, if I remember correctly, and because she was our line producer at UPM throughout the whole run of the show, and then she started directing episodes. And I remember for that scene, she's like, "Yeah, I just want you guys to just hold that position." It's like because she got this inspiration from this photo that she saw of this man just holding this woman. I don't know if they were in the shower or whatever. Yeah, I just want you just holding, just don't move. And we were like, don't move. It's like, yeah, you're just standing there. We're like, okay. So yeah, it definitely felt really, really weird, really weird.
It's something though that I'm sure you get used to, like when it comes to those type of scenes, because sort of joking about the fact that Davis didn't really have. Taylor was Davis's first proper girlfriend to that point, 3 or so seasons in. So
yeah,
and it just adds to layers of a character. I'm sure once you are developing a character, you've been with that character for a couple of seasons. You're wanting to expand further. Do you really find yourself wanting more? Because the more you get into that character's head, are you thinking by like the second or third season, well, why hasn't he got a girlfriend? Surely at this point in his life, he would be settling down a little bit. Or is it the opposite? Do you think, well, no, if this was me at that point in my life and I've got this crazy job with these crazy situations, I'm not mentally going to be in a place to have a serious girlfriend at this point?
I don't know. I always just kind of took it as it came. I didn't question very often, where the writers were going with my character. I was always pretty happy with what they did with him. If I can remember correctly, it's funny, you bring up these things and then I have to, first of all, you're like sparking these memories. And then I got to just kind of shake the dust off the memories real quick and try to formulate them into a thought. But yeah, if I remember correctly, I was always kind of fine with where they were going with it. And as far as how it mirrored my own life, no, I was in a very serious relationship. Like I said before, my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, she moved out to New York with me. We were together, and I think by what season was that? Well, it must have been by season 3. we either got married or were planning on getting married. But I got married when I was 26. So yeah, season 3, I think.
Wow.
So it wasn't where I was in my life compared to where he was in his life, for sure.
In that second season is by far my favorite, and sort of we advocated for a lot of it that it's, to me, we're going on that underrated notion. I'm very biased, Coby, but I think it's one of the greatest seasons in television. I think kind of just a near perfect season was season 2, and obviously a lot more of those episodes were character-centric rather than just kind of concentrating on multiple stories with the multiple cast. You know, you all had your own solo episodes, and you had very early on with the ties that bind, kind of, you know, you find out that you've got an extra family. Your dad was kind of going out there and having a bit on the side and everything along those lines.
Yeah.
The one scene that particularly stands out at the very end when you kind of had that moment with the gravestone, you know, you're so emotionally distraught over this revelation about your dad, and you're kicking this gravestone down and things like that. On that development though, like, as an actor, young actor coming through, learning your craft and that, are they the moments that you really strive for, those overly emotional ones where you can kind of really just unleash and kick the shit out of a gravestone and really kind of bring that emotion to the screen?
I think at that point, I don't know, man. I don't know how to explain this, but I was so in it that I wasn't able to really, like, you know, rise above it and look at it and like sort of critique it and be like, oh yeah, this is the moment I've been waiting for. It was just kind of like I was like, okay, they give me the script. And I was so connected to who Davis was that I would kind of like, it was like I said earlier, like there wasn't a lot of acting required because I felt so connected to what was going on. Whatever they wrote, I felt like I was living it. You know?
Yeah.
I think at this stage, you know, this stage further along in my career, I look at everything from, you know, the eyes of how it actually is. But back then I was so in it that whatever it was they gave me, I would just do it to the best of my ability. So it wasn't like, oh, here's the moment I've been waiting for, you know, this emotional stuff. It was like, oh, okay, me and Davis are going through this emotional thing. Here we go. you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of how it felt more to me back then.
And you,
as opposed to now being this old salty vet.
Where all of a sudden 20 years ago you've been asked to run through the streets of New York every second episode after a fictional perp. Nowadays you're just like, oh man, can I just sit at my desk? I don't need to run after someone.
Right.
Which, is there a lot of training involved? Like, I mean, you ran a lot in those first couple of seasons. It was either you or Jason. You guys were sprinting after some perps every second bloody episode. So, I mean, are they saying, like, come on, man, come on, Coby, just stay in shape, stop eating those donuts. Like, you need to sprint in a couple of episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was Ed Bonero's take on how rookies really were. Like, he's like, they're always just gung-ho sprinting after everybody. So I was lucky enough to be that guy. So I was running take after take after take after take. I sure was.
With I mentioned After Hours, such a great episode, but I mean, I think Davis in that episode is particularly funny, obviously getting a little bit too drunk, vomiting in Bobby's car and kind of everything along those lines.
Yeah.
Do you remember much about that episode?
Yeah. Yes. Now that you're saying that, yeah, I do. Yeah. Didn't he ate like pickled eggs?
Yeah, because some of the great stuff in that is sort of you're on the curb, I think, with Alex, Amy Carlson's character, and kind of you just hear Bobby in the background going like, "Is that egg? What is that? Is that egg?" And you're like,
yeah.
He's so right. Mad that you've ruined his beautiful car.
Yeah. That was fun. I remember that. I do remember that. Man, memories come flooding in.
You need. When do you watch it? Do you like? Is this something that do you watch your work? Do you like to watch what you've acted in?
Well, yeah, I do. I'll watch it right after. You know, I'll watch it like when it airs or shortly after. But I haven't watched any of the old stuff in a long time. My kids, my older girls, started watching the first season of Third Watch. I think not all seasons are available out here for some reason. It's really weird.
Only the first two. The first two seasons are the only ones that have actually ever been released on DVD.
Man, so I remember my daughters watching it a couple years ago, and them just tripping out at how young I looked. And that's all they were talking about. Like, Daddy, you look like a kid. You look like a kid. I was like, yeah, well, yeah. But no, I haven't. Yeah, I don't really go back, and I'll definitely watch it to learn right when it happens. I want to watch and learn from my mistakes, and so I don't make them anymore. But I don't go back and watch. I've actually, I probably shouldn't mention that because there's something that's one of my old things looks like it's coming back.
Is it Third Watch? Coby, are you giving us an exclusive here right now? Is it Third Watch? Is it coming back, isn't it? 2020 Netflix reboot. Come on.
Yeah. I can tell you that it's not Third Watch, but I spoke too soon because I guess I can't say what it is. But yeah, if it does look like it's really going to come back, I may have to go back and sort of watch some episodes to kind of remember exactly where my head was when I was playing the character,
And I guess that's the state of the industry right now. It's all well and good to say a show's ended, but certain shows are getting revived all the time. Is that something extra that you've got to be aware of, that if a show ends that you might be needing to revisit that character at some point in the future?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely all for it, especially for jobs. I've been lucky enough to be on jobs that I really have loved. Loved playing the characters, loved working with the people. So, yeah, if any of them were to come back, I'm totally happy. Totally happy to revisit it. But it's going on a lot these days. Yeah, there are a lot of reboots.
Which, some are hit, some are miss. I guess kind of, that's the case with anything really. It's not just reboots. Regular shows are like that too, hits and misses as well. So, it's one of those things where it depends on the show, doesn't it, really? About whether you kind of hear something's coming back and you're like, Murphy Brown, do we need that again? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I don't even really look at it that way. I'm looking at it more like, oh yeah, an opportunity to work with my friends again.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's kind of how I look at it. And then and if it does end up being a great thing, then cool. And if it ends up being overkill, then we learn from that and we move on.
Exactly. It's interesting too, like with the episode like After Hours, kind of, Third Watch generally would always have that one episode, maybe even two per season, where it's kind of, let's have the big job, let's have the big group together. You had that in season 1 with Ohio when you were kind of all hanging out at I think it was the Hillary Clinton, Rudolph Giuliani debate, and then all of a sudden you've got this After Hours one. So I guess it's kind of like going back to the friendships formed. It must be great to have those sort of big ensemble episodes where you've got that excuse where just basically all of you can intersect and work. Because After Hours as well, Amy Carlson's the new kid on the block, but that was then there's 10 of you at that point. You've got the original 9 of you plus Amy Carlson. I don't think you really had an episode after Hours where you had so many of you being able to work together, because Bobby would leave a few episodes after that. So that was kind of the last OG episode where all of you were together all at once.
Yeah, I guess so. Especially on, it's kind of funny to say this, but especially on the days when there's not not a lot of, on a day when you don't have a lot of lines, a lot of stuff to concentrate on, when you can just kind of hang out and have fun with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the best. Those are the best. If it's everyone on set together and there's not, because I think, what was it? There was, might have been towards the end when, and I guess it was the very, very end, when Anthony and Yvonne's characters got married.
Yep.
When Carlos and Holly got married.
Correct. Yep.
And I remember just shooting that stuff, just those little like montage scenes of them getting married, but everybody was there. It was like a party,
That's fantastic. We spoke with Kim Raver about a year or so ago, and she talked a lot about kind of there was lots of pranks going on set, particularly in the firehouse. Was that a similar thing over on the cop side of things? Were there sort of jokes and sort of games and that being played sort of in between takes?
Yes, absolutely yes. Absolutely, yes. The first one that pops into my head, for a while there, we had Anthony and I. There was this battle. I think this might have been when Josh came along. When what was his character? Finney.
Finney, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like this is in those years when Josh was there. We would take the surgical gloves, or the gloves that the doctors wear,
mm-hmm.
and we'd fill them up with water, and we would go up to the roof of it was like a 3-story building, and we'd go up to the roof, and we would wait for someone like Anthony or someone to go outside outside. And the thing was, you couldn't drop it right on them because you couldn't get the hair all wet and get the wardrobe all wet, but you wanted to drop it close enough to them to where it just scared the crap out of them. So when the water balloon or glove balloon or whatever you want to call it would explode, it's just to scare the crap out of them. And then I think we may have talked about this on the 20th anniversary when we would fill the big syringes up with water and have like squirt gun fights with them. And the whole rule with that was you couldn't affect the shot. Like you couldn't get it in their hair, you couldn't get it in their face, you couldn't ruin any part of the wardrobe that was going to be seen in the shot. But if you knew they had already done the wide shot and now they're coming in from just the waist up, you could go and like squirt someone right in the crotch and make them look like they peed their pants, So yeah, I remember one time, Josh and I had an epic battle going on, back and forth going on. His character was in a hospital bed, and I took it upon myself to get 2 syringes full, and got up on top of the set, and was like up on the catwalk above the set, and was directly above his hospital bed. While he was shooting the scene, and I let him have it from above like that. We would take it to the extreme like that.
That's crazy. I think I'm going to watch it now, just assuming every time we don't see any waist down shots that everyone's just going to have a wet patch on their uniform or something like that.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to picture it. I mean, we talking about like the running and the action side of things. I mean, Davis was involved in some pretty epic shootouts throughout the thing. I mean, obviously you get shot in the 3rd season when kind of they bring in Roy Scheider's character. What are those scenes like to film when you kind of got these big action set pieces, lots of gunfire going off, and then all of a sudden you've got to kind of take a bit of silence and realize that you've got shot in your Johnson or something like that. I can't remember what the line was. I think they got my goods. I think that's what you said when you get shot.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, it was something like goods, they got me, Sal. They got me in the goods, I think it was.
Yeah, that was Method Man shot me, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Again, it was not a lot of action required because just the way the whole chaos of that scene, the way the whole thing felt. And then when you got the actual blanks going on around you. I mean, I know it's absolutely nothing like, being in a real, gun battle, obviously, but just you can connect enough to it to where when that moment comes where you got to, completely pretend to be shot, you kind of believe it, or at least that's the goal. The goal is the goal as an actor is to believe it. And when they set it up for you and the writers give you everything you need, and the writing is so good, it makes it a lot easier to believe it.
With the development of Davis, I think kind of the key thing that really happened in the final season was kind of getting that payoff to really find out what happened to his dad and kind of, put the guy away. Josh Stewart's character, Finney's dad, obviously was the one who kind of was involved with that. Was that something that you had always kind of hoped that there was going to be a resolution to the storyline around what had happened to Davis's dad?
Sweet. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot all about that stuff. This is when Davis is with Sasha, and and then Finney's dad had something to do with it.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm trying to piece it all together.
And Sasha was a rat. She was in IAB. She was the one. Yep.
Sasha was Sasha. She broke my heart. She broke my heart.
Did.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, again, no. As far as like hoping, I always trusted wherever the writers were going. I never had, any, hey, can we do this? Hey, can we do that? That wasn't where I've was ever coming from. Even really like on the other shows that I've done, I kind of just kind of go with it, go with it and make the most of it. Because I figure, the writers are hired to do their job, and I'm hired to do my job, and I don't want to overstep my bounds and assume that I can, come up with better storylines than they can. Like I remember there's been a couple times on the game where I remember suggesting that, because I don't know if you know anything about the game, but it was a show that I was on for a long time. It was like 9 years, and it was a comedy about football, American football, and so when the time it came for my character to retire, I just remember suggesting that my character become a coach. Little things like that, and it might have been something they were already thinking. But as far as the Davis's dad thing, no, I thought it was very cool how the whole thing, was tied up. But it was never any suggestion of mine or any desire of mine. But I thought it was great what they did, though.
With that, though, do you then, when it comes to closing off an arc, so when you do get to the end of the game, sort of, and that suggestion comes up, or be it Third Watch, be it Burn Notice, and your character's arc come to a close, do you kind of reflect and think to yourself, this is exactly where I thought or would like that character to end up? Do you kind of have a bit of, well, this isn't maybe what I was picturing, but I'm satisfied with it, things like that? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think again, like, the way I come from it with no expectations, then everything is usually all good. I mean, unless I would imagine if there was something that I really disagreed with, but I've never really come across that. I've been lucky enough to never really come across that in my career, where there's something I was just so opposed to. So yeah, I just kind of go with the flow and show up and try to do my best work. That's kind of how I approach it. We've got a few listener questions from, particularly from Henry Kemp, who sent us some great listener questions that I feel one of them should be asked now here, because obviously we talked about someone like Bobby who left, and people like Eddie Cibrian's character left at a certain point. A few, obviously, departures throughout the show. It happens. Was there any point where you considered leaving, thinking that I could take another offer, do something there, or were you kind of just committed to this show from the very beginning and didn't want it to end?
No, I was committed to the show. It was not so much that I didn't want it to end. I mean, I know all things, especially TV shows come to an end, and I know especially if you can have one that runs for 6 years, that's just wonderful. So when it did end, I was like, okay, cool. That was great. I'm going to miss it, but it was, we did our thing, and my wife and I were looking forward to moving back to California full time. We had 2 kids at that point. My first 2 kids were born in New York. So yeah, it's just, I know, but I never had any desire to go off and do anything else, and that may come from my dad. My dad is a singer, and he's always like, listen, especially he knows how, he knows how fickle the business can be. And he's saying, look, if you get on something good, you ride it till the wheels fall off. Especially with my case when I was still totally enjoying it, So there was, I never felt any desire to jump ship.
It's interesting too. One thing that we noticed just on our rewatch when we were covering all the episodes, it's kind of, we always enjoyed a good episode where they would switch the pairings up for a little bit. So obviously, yourself and Skip's characters were always paired up. You were 5-5 Charlie, that was it. But kind of there was one episode where you got to partner with Jason's character, Bosco. I think that was the Ties That Bind, the one we were talking about before. So kind of we loved seeing Davis and Bosco work together. Did you enjoy those ones too? Because I think the only ones we never got to see you work with, I don't think you ever got paired with Molly's character. We never saw a Davis and Yokas episode, which would have been quite unique. But
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that could be fun to change it up. Working with Jason, I mean, God, that would have been fun.
I remember having scenes with Molly here and there, and it was always a good time. But yeah, working with Jason was a blast. It was, and that was the Ties That Bind episode when we worked together.
I believe so, because I think that was when you were shitty with Sully because he had kept that secret from you that your dad had been sleeping around.
Yeah. And I remember, and Davis kind of ended up. He was kind of like Bosco's voice of reason, was he not? He was kind of like the more mature person in the car.
Yeah, because a lot through the first season, kind of Bosco had been trying to get into Davis's head, like, get away from Sully, like, he's an old man, you need to come where the real action is, and follow me, all gung-ho Bosco. So I think kind of that was the connection there that you had in that episode.
Yeah. I don't remember. Oh, yes. Wait, I remember... Did we chase down some dude? Did we chase down some dude and then Davis started punching him and then Bosco had to pull him off? Was that one?
Yep. Because you were it was kind of intersecting because a lot of that episode you were having visions of your dad, and then I think you were picturing your dad on the ground as you were bashing the crap out of this perp.
Oh my gosh, yes. And was that the one where he's like I somehow went in the water, I was sinking in the water or something like that.
Yeah, and he was up on the bridge. I think that was a helicopter crash. That was a helicopter crash episode where you dived in and kind of tried to save the person in the helicopter. No,
but I think there was one where he was having a dream or a vision where he was.
Oh yeah. You were floating. Yeah, you were kind of in the tank floating. Yep. That's the one. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. And because I remember. I think I remember showing up to do that scene, and I was in my cop uniform, and I can't remember who it was. Was it the director or one of the producers? Like, no, you need to be in a Speedo. And I was like, why? They're like, oh, because the backstory is Davis was a swimmer. And his dad used to take him to the beach. I'm like, wait, but that's not in the story at all. That's only in your head. It would make no sense for this dude who's in a cop uniform to be having a daydream, and then in the daydream he's not in his cop uniform. He's in a Speedo. What sense does that make? I just remember that when you brought that up.
You dodged a bullet then. You dodged a bullet having not been a Speedo then.
Well, it just would have been weird. It would have made zero sense. But yeah. I mean, I remember falling there, and I had to. I was on the diving board for the effect to be right. We were this big Olympic-sized pool, and I had to be pretty high up on the diving board and then go jump in backwards. They wanted me to kind of back flop in, so that it would have that effect of him going being sucked down into the water. If I remember correctly, and I remember it being kind of painful. If I remember correctly.
You want to do that in one take. You don't want to have to hear the cut. Do it again. It's not believable. We don't believe you falling in the water backwards enough.
Yeah.
That's funny. I think it's also interesting later on in the show, obviously when Nia's character comes in. I mean, she's a big name. We try to really talk that up when her character came on the show because. I mean, I would argue at that point in Third Watch, maybe the biggest regular cast member to be added. I mean, that must be pretty amazing to have Nia Long show up on Third Watch, and then obviously your character gets you get her pregnant at the end, I think, from memory.
Yeah, I do remember having those being wow, so this is somebody that only, a few years ago, I had a crush on her, whatever, or from being her being in movies, or maybe it was from when I was a teenager when she was on Fresh Prince, or whatever it was. I remember thinking of her as a movie star, being oh wow, I get to work with Nia Long, and then of course you get to know her, and she's just Nia. She's cool.
It's also with so many episodes that you did as at 127, I know we kind of asked this question on the reunion episode, and you sort of mentioned the cop funeral as one of the standouts. Were there any other sort of episodes or moments that you do remember that stood out more than any of the others that you did over the 6 seasons of Third Watch?
There's a lot. I don't know if I can conjure them up right now. I mean, I think I mentioned the one where I accidentally shoot the dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then his wife, and I mentioned, on the 20th anniversary thing, I mentioned how hard the woman actually slapped me in real life. Man, remember the big hospital battle?
Yep.
The big stunt. We had a huge stunt fight with that guy, and then Nia ends up stabbing him in the back. I remember that one. That one was crazy. That was a lot of fun. The one, where Anthony gets cornered and he throws the mug at the guy.
Yep, and he falls on his head again. That became a recurring theme, didn't it, in season 6? Oh, I hit my head again.
There was one where I was dangling from a. I guess I'm remembering all the big action stuff just because that's the first thing. I remember dangling from the building. Remember that one? I go to save the woman.
Is that where you fall and you kind of go on the big pillow? Because I was going to ask you, did you perform that stunt?
Yeah. So I did the stunt. I did the actual hanging off of the building, which was crazy. They put this harness on you, this harness that goes down around your crotch, but still, once you get out there, it's like, oh shit, what am I doing? What am I doing? And so I'm hanging from the building, and then for the actual fall from that height, they had a stuntman do the fall from that height onto the firefight, the fireman inflatable, whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had me. They just needed to, they needed to see the last, whatever it was, 20 feet of the fall, and they wanted it to actually be me. So I think I got up on a fire truck, on the ladder from a fire truck, and just jumped off. I think that's how we did it.
Wow.
Because that one is, I remember, jumping in the East River a few times, swimming around in there.
You're always wet. They're always wanting you in a bloody Speedo, clearly.
Well, I just remember, looking in the river going, is it cool for me to get in this water? I'm seeing condoms and I'm pretty sure that was a dead body that just floated by. Is it okay for me to jump in? Oh yeah, no, it's fine. We tested it. It's fine. I remember that. I remember the actual fear of any time we had to do a chase scene where Skip was actually driving, because he had just done Ronin. I think I may have brought this up in the conversation we had last month. Skip had just done Ronin, and he fancied himself quite a stunt driver. So he's doing all this crazy stuff, and you know how it feels like when you're in the passenger seat and someone's driving crazy and you have no control.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, anytime they cut to Davis and he looks like he's scared, that wasn't acting either. That was me
legitimately shitting yourself.
Yeah, or just clenching my booty and holding it in it.
Skip's head getting big because he did Ronin, and he was in a Razor too, wasn't he, with Schwarzenegger? So he gets a couple of big name credits with some big actors and movies, and he's Mr. Stunt Driver.
Yeah. He did a lot of stunt driving on Ronin. He did. I mean, he knew what he was doing, but still, it didn't make me feel any more safe.
Were there moments, obviously filming out in New York and doing everything out there, were there ever any moments where people legitimately thought you were cops, actually came up to you and were like, hey, police?
Yes, often, yes. And they would come right up to the car and be like, officer, there's blah, 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 what's going on down there? And I'm like, dude, you see this big camera? Attached to the other window of the car? And then, because I guess people get so tunnel vision when they're, they see you and they run to you, and then they don't look around and notice that there's cameras all pointed at you and there's a big crew around you, and that you're completely fake.
Do you ever get the urge though? Do you get into such a zone where you kind of like, oh yes, ma'am, I will take that report for you? No. No, I think that would have been. I think you can get arrested for doing that. But if you're a cop, do you have to arrest yourself? You could just argue hey, check the badge out, officer. I'm on the job.
Yeah. I never wanted to find out. Yeah. I remember there was one time when a cop car got stolen. Like, I mean, me and Skip's car got stolen. It was sitting there with the keys in it, and somebody just took off in it. And so for the scene, we ended up having to just like walk around the corner, like we had parked around the corner for some reason because we didn't have a cop car. Someone stole it.
Wow. I'm guessing you find it, or is there just somebody driving around New York in a 55th precinct car?
I don't know. I'm sure the real cops got on it pretty quickly, but I don't know whatever happened with it. I don't know how that story ended, but I just know the car wasn't there. It was gone.
That's crazy. Wow. I think also too, like we brought it up in the 20th anniversary one, and you talked a little bit about it in the documentary and the DVD, where you mentioned about how you had people coming up to you and saying like, I wanted to become a cop because of you. Do you have any like real standouts there where somebody like legitimately told you some amazing story where it came down to the fact that, hey, here I am as a cop, thanks so much for portraying this great character of Davis?
No, yeah. There's been people over the years that have told me that, and it's just it's a trip, man. It is a trip to think that because I'm just an actor. You just all I'm doing is pretending, and then for someone to be inspired by that and to make a major life decision, especially one as important as being a police officer, it's an honor, but at the same time, it's a bit like. Oh, what's the word? Is it overwhelming, I guess, in a way? Mm-hmm. To just to think that it has. I mean, just in the same way that it's kind of overwhelming to think that right now I'm talking to you. You were a kid in Australia when this show was on, and it affected you in such a way so that I'm talking to you about it now. But like when I'm on set, 15, 20 years ago, I'm not thinking about some kid in Australia, or how it's gonna, about how what I'm doing is going to affect some kid in Australia. I'm just there trying to do my best, Because it's funny. It's funny how you can affect people's lives without even realizing it.
Well, especially with a show like Third Watch too, because. Going back to my point when I was saying about how it's underrated, I mean, obviously Third Watch wasn't like, it wasn't like ER. It wasn't the number one show in America. It wasn't winning all the Emmys, but I mean, it still had a bit of a fan base as well. So did it ever surprise you that Third Watch kind of didn't take off as much as maybe ER did or some of these other shows and kind of just went under the radar a little bit and was just kind of a solid show without having massive, massive success?
Yeah, I don't know if it surprised me. But I remember not really fully understanding, because I did believe it was a really good show, and I did believe it was, what we were doing was really good television at the time. So, I didn't fully understand. But that's TV. You never know if something's gonna click all the way like ER did, or click just enough like Third Watch did to where it stays on and has a good run and has good critical acclaim, but not the kind of popularity that a show like ER had. You just never know.
Henry Kemp, a couple other questions he has. One of the ones here, which I like, aside from Sully, did you have a favorite character in the series?
Man, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. I don't know if I do.
Just say Sully. Sully's an exciting. I'll let you get away with Sully.
What? Well, no, I thought we were saying Sully is the given. I thought we were saying Sully is
That's it. He's so perfect that even when you can't think of another one, he still is the answer because that's just Sully.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think it was more the show as a whole. How everybody together as a team worked.
Did you have any? Henry also adds as well. Ask your best memory with Skip while filming. I mean, we talked a little bit about sort of the whole Mocha Hans kind of thing in the reunion. But I mean, were there any other moments that you sort of best memories you had across those 6 seasons with Skip?
So many, man. Way too many to even narrow it down to one. It's just, we just lucked out, sort of coming across each other's paths at the right time in the right place. Because we've just been, he's one of my best friends to this day. And, even at the time, I was 23. He was probably like my age now, like 44, somewhere around there, maybe 40, 42. But we just like clicked. It's like we had so much in common. Our sense of humor just like locked right in right away. Like we just understood each other right away and became close friends right away. So yeah, and the same, kind of the same with Anthony. Both of our fathers are musicians, and early on in the run of Third Watch, we connected through music a lot. We would, and same with Skip. We would all get together and just like rent out a little jam space and just play music together. Just hop around on different instruments and just jamming. And that was kind of how we hung out for the majority of the run of the show. Because
I believe you are or were involved in a reggae band. Is that true?
Long time ago, this is before Third Watch. I was in a sort of reggae, rocksteady kind of band. But then once the acting thing really kicked into the point to where I didn't have time to do much of anything else, the music kind of became a hobby. But so then it just became getting together with friends and just, making noise, which, Anthony and I still do whenever we can. Not as much these days, but up until a few years ago, we were still doing it pretty regularly. And actually for this project we've been working on, there's a lot of music involved and we've been, making music for it. So it's been fun.
I kind of want to see you and Anthony join Skip in Minus Ted and kind of just having sort of like a Third Watch super band going on there. I think a lot of fans would be edging out to see that.
There was at one point I did. I did a show with Minus Ted, playing drums. Trying to remember, playing drums and singing a little bit. I don't remember how it went down, but I just remember being on stage with them.
That would be epic if that footage existed somewhere, Coby. I'm just thinking about that.
I don't know if it does. And that was sort of, it was before social media, before nowadays there's footage of everything that ever happens. But back then it wasn't really that way.
Yeah. Was it, you talk about sort of, enjoying your time at Third Watch. When you find out that it's been cancelled, what's that feeling like when you get that official news?
It was mixed because I knew that I was going to miss, the relationships that I developed with everybody on the show. And I was going to miss working on the show. I loved working on the show, but at the same time, I was ready to come back to California. As much as I love living in New York, I was ready to come back home and, raise my kids here and get back to my life here. So when it did end, it felt like even though I know the show could have had more life, but it felt like that we didn't really get shortchanged as far as where I'm coming from.
And Henry Kemp also adds another one, saying that Skip recently posted on Instagram a photo of his old cop uniform from the show. Did you keep much memorabilia or props after the show ended?
I think I have a hat. I think I have a hat and a badge and a few things that are up in some closet somewhere. But I didn't keep much. No, I'm usually not very sentimental in that way. I'll keep just a couple little things that'll just kind of, give me good memories. I remember with Burn Notice. What did I keep from Burn Notice? I can't remember.
As long as you've got
with the
something.
game, I remember I remember with the game, one of the executive producers gave me, our team was supposed to have won the championship, so he gave me the championship ring to keep. So it's just it's a little thing to kind of have. I'm not one of those dudes that has a bunch of posters and stuff of the things that I've done all over the house, but I'll have, just that little ring, little badge, just to kind of remind me.
Post Third Watch too, obviously you mentioned the game. I think you were in the game longer than you were for Third Watch, and of course Burn Notice, probably the most prominent ones. Is that later on in the years now, when say it's a fan thing, when fans are talking to you about favorite roles and that kind of, what is the one that most people are talking to? Is it Burn Notice? Is it Third Watch? Is it the game?
It really just depends. As the years have gone on, it's less Third Watch, especially because Third Watch, for whatever their reason, it hasn't been like on Netflix or been out. They haven't even released the whole thing on DVD. I mean, I think maybe there might be more Third Watch fans still coming up to me if Third Watch was still alive in that way. But yeah, Burn Notice. There's a lot of Burn Notice fans, but I got to tell you, the fans of the game are extremely loyal. They're extremely, because with the game, it was on the CW for 3 years. It got canceled, and so that's when I hopped on Burn Notice. But then the game came back on another network. It came on BET. And then I asked Burn Notice if I could do it. So they said yes. And so for 4 years there, I was doing both shows at the same time. But the game, they had, once the BET got the rights to it, they did the reruns so much on BET that, the fans of the show, we were in their house every day. They're doing like marathons. So I feel like if you're on someone's TV every day like that, they kind of feel like they know you. So when they see you, it's not like, oh, hey, there's that dude from the show. It's like, oh, hey, there's my good buddy Coby. You know what I mean? So yeah, so they're really enthusiastic fans of the game. But it's kind of a mix though, as far as like all the different things I've done. And then like the last couple of years, I was on a Marvel thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish, isn't it? Kind of being involved in Marvel X-Men sort of thing, because I mean that's got its own entire fan group, which I can imagine adds a whole different layer to that experience. Yeah, that was crazy. That's great. It's just having instant people who were instantly into the show just because it was a Marvel product. And then, just from early on, they're like, they're flying us places on little, private jets and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is a different deal. But yeah, unfortunately, that one only went 2 years. But yeah, during that, I got to experience, going to Comic-Con, doing that whole thing. So yeah, that's a whole different can of worms. So do you now consider yourself part of the MCU now that like Disney owns Fox and everything's under the one umbrella? Are you officially in the X-Men MCU lexicon? I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess technically I am. I never really gave that much. I never gave that much thought, but yeah, I guess so. I guess that's. I mean, I know it's just a TV show, but it's part of the X-Men world. There's got to be an action figure out there. I want to see some form of Coby Bell action figure from The Gifted, like Man, I'm telling you, I think I would retire if I was on something that I got an action figure made. Yep. I think I'd be okay. I'm good. Full circle. Basketball with George Clooney to action figure. They're your bookends of your career. Done do. Yeah, because when I was a kid, I mean, action figures were a big part of my life. I was always making up little movies in my head with all my action figures. So, yeah, if I ever got on something that was action figure worthy, that would be a big deal for me. You mentioned obviously being involved with Chulak on SEAL Team and sort of the project in the wind with Anthony. I mean, what else is in the pipeline, Coby? Kind of, can you give us? You mentioned don't allude too much about a certain show that might be coming back, but anything else that's kind of in the pipeline? Well, no, I mean that's the pipeline's kind of full as far as that goes. I'm doing SEAL Team for the rest of this season. I did another episode of Archer, which is so much fun. That cartoon Archer? Yep. Very popular. Huge Archers. Like, it's just growing and growing, it seems. Yeah. So I did the third episode ever 10 years ago. And then I did, they had my character back 5 years later. And then 5 years from then, which is just like a couple weeks ago, which I blew my mind that the show had been on for 10 years. They brought my guy back again. And it's always so much fun, man. So much like that. I wish that was just what I did for a living, was just go in that booth and be silly like that. It's so much fun. Because it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? Because I remember when we spoke to Anthony for the first time, I think at that point he was just doing his role in Batman. So kind of just having these extra elements of doing voice acting, which I'm sure is completely different to live acting.
Well, it's just great for, I mean, it's just fun to do and to be a part of something like that. But it's also perfect for, if you have a family. You're okay, I got to go to work, and you go up for an hour or two, and then you come back, okay, I'm home, and then I'm get to go to the volleyball game. So it's good that way. But yeah, as far as the thing with me and Anthony and Bruce is it's cooking along, man, and then that would be a whole lot of fun if we got that going, and I guess more on that later if it ever comes to reality, and then. Yeah, and then this thing that I'm not supposed to tell anyone about, that would kick in, if it does happen, it would kick in the summertime, and we'd get back to work on that. So,
fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this third watch reboot, Coby. I'm glad that you've given us the exclusive. It's fantastic. Like we've broken the news here. It's pretty epic. I'm loving it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that if it happened. I would love it. I would love it if it ever happened.
Which it's interesting because I guess it is that thing we were talking about before of kind of like you never know. So if they bring back Murphy Brown, I mean no disrespect to Murphy Brown, but I mean come on.
Yeah.
Not sure if I'm just alienating more Murphy Brown fans, but just having that side
I
of
don't know,
things.
man. It's kind of it's what they're doing these days, and sometimes it's worth doing, and sometimes it's not. But I guess you never know until you do it.
And also, just before we wrap it up, you mentioned obviously, meeting your wife sort of just before third watch and going on there. I believe with your children, did you not have two sets of twins? Did I read that correctly?
You did read that correctly, yeah.
How does that go? You have your first set of twins, great, awesome. Let's have more children, and you have more twins. Like, do you go into that thing? Oh, we'll just have two kids. You end up with four, like 4 for the price of 2, essentially.
Yeah. And then, by the second time around, it was kind of like, okay, well, this is what we already know how to do, so let's do it. Here we go. We had already done it 5 years before, so we kind of had our system down and our way of doing it. So yeah, it's been great, man. I highly recommend having children. It's the best.
I would take that on board. Because, is there even odds in that? Like, do doctors say to you, like, oh, well, gosh, this is rare that you kind of, like, you have two sets of twins?
Well, I think it was from when Davis got shot in the junk.
Yes, that makes sense.
So now all I can do is make twins.
It split the junk in such a way that it only you have double shot. And then it's like, boom,
right.
Awesome. I'm firing it's like a machine gun, going crazy. Guess what?
Right.
We're having twins left, right, and center.
It's not so much a machine gun. It's more like a double barrel shotgun. It's hard to explain.
Well, there we go, humanity. If the zombie apocalypse happens tomorrow, and we need to repopulate the Earth. Let's just all call Coby Bell. He's going to be producing children pretty quickly. Get the double barrel shotgun loaded, and Bob's your uncle.
Oh,
done.
Man. It's locked and loaded, man. It's always ready.
Locked and loaded. Wow. I never thought that's how we're going to end this interview. Coby, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting. Goodness me. How do we go from George Clooney basketball to talking about that?
George Clooney basketball. It's actually that's how every interview I do, I start with the George Clooney basketball, and then I end with my double barrel junk.
It's just the name dropping as well. It's kind of like, you mentioned about that one time, my thoughts on the current political crisis in America. That reminds me of the time I played basketball with George Clooney.
Exactly. You gotta start with a strong name drop.
Yep.
And then end talking about your junk. It's just it's rule number one.
Well, it's your career. ER started with your junk rising to the occasion, and then it's literally rising even more in the future when
true.
Look at that.
It's full circle.
It is
full circle.
It's all about your junk.
Wow.
It's that simple.
Yeah,
Wow.
This week on the podcast, we're talking about Coby Bell and his junk.
Yes, breaking new ground in the world of interviews. It's in an interview that you never thought would be possible. It's the Junk Cast on the Oz Network. Oh,
man.
my goodness. Coby, pleasure, mate. Such a good time. And we look forward to seeing these projects and everything happening along the way. And I'm sure we're going to be watching in eager anticipation for everything that happens and hoping it does all eventually revolve around your junk, which I'm sure it will.
It always does. It always does. Yeah, man. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Let me know, man. We can do it again sometime.
And a massive, massive, massive pleasure there. What a fun interview that was. And definitely one that I'm sure you enjoyed out there as well as a Third Watch fan or just a fan in general of actors. I don't even think, as much as the topic of conversation was Third Watch, I think there's a lot in there, just a lot of fun. So really do appreciate Coby's time and a fantastic chat there with a lot of fun to be had. And of course, a lot of fun to be had still on our Third Watch coverage because we're very much closing in now on the end. We've only got a few episodes to go of season 6 and that's it. We've covered all of Third Watch. So if you've missed any of them, you've got plenty of episodes to catch up on. You can head to theoznetwork.net and find all the recaps there and other interviews that we've had too. Of course, the big one, as we've mentioned a few times there, the 20th anniversary that we did in September, featuring Coby, featuring Skip, featuring some other actors and people involved in the show, which was a lot of fun. And we still have planned some other interviews. It's not something that we're just going to completely disappear with. We've got Bill Walsh lined up for a full-length interview coming up very, very soon. And we also are still very hopeful of securing an interview with Jason Wiles. It's been in the pipeline for a long time, and it will happen. It's just a matter of when. So you will know about it when we know about it, and that one's going to be the one that I get really giddy over to get Jason Wiles on the show. So stay tuned for that. It will happen eventually. And outside of our Third Watch coverage, of course, we've got other great things that we're covering. Lost, bit of a hiatus at the moment, but Lost is coming back. Don't worry about that one. We've got our movie recaps happening at the moment. We're getting through all the Star Wars movies in the lead up to Rise of Skywalker. A lot of fun. Of course, Survivor Island of the Idols coverage is happening as well. And there's random rewatches thrown in there for good measure from Colin and Rossi and The Amazing Race Australia with Rossi and Jared. So plenty to keep you entertained here on the Oz Network for all tastes and flavours. You're welcome. We're here to entertain you, and we like doing it. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe on all the relevant podcast channels, and please leave us feedback. We'd love to hear what you think of the show along the way, and we always appreciate your support, listening and giving us that support when you do it. Thanks again to Coby. Thanks for listening, and until next time we speak on the Oz Network, my name has been Ben. Still is, but it will be tomorrow as well. Point is, we're going to go. Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Oz Network. Don't forget to subscribe to get new episodes delivered to your speakers every week. For more information, hit us up at theoznetwork.net.